Hi everyone, in this video we're going to discuss how to do the hard mode for Moon Abyss. I'm going to show you a couple of different teams for tier 30 and tier 80. I won't show all of the stages because I've already done a video for that and it takes quite a long time to clear all 20 stages. So I have posted the video for my tier 83 clear. If you want to watch that. The same strategy can be used on tier 80. Tier 83 just adds a bit more like survivability on the opposing side, so it just means like higher requirements. But basically, I would say you would probably be aiming to clear tier 30 at least, and it's significantly easier than tier 80. So I think most people should try to go for this. But if you want to do tier 80, I will have like the setup for it, and the reward is basically just the badge. These are like sort of meh rewards for considering how difficult tier 80 is. But I think tier 30 is reasonable to do as long as you have a Morgan, and unfortunately I think Morgan is kind of required for this. I'm unsure whether it's clearable without her, but I'm sure maybe someone can prove me wrong. But I think you're gonna have a rough time without Morgan. But I'll explain why once we go over the team. Actually, so before we even go through that, the main mechanic for hard mode is that it is very similar to normal in that you can only reset 3 times, but you do not have to pay crystals for these resets. And but the main reason is because this does not reset daily. You can just rerun this as many times as you want by doing this hard reset. If you've used up all your attempts and you can't progress any further, then you would have to hard reset and go back to stage 1, basically. Yeah, and you have to full clear this if you want to get the target rewards. Now, so we're gonna reset here, and then so this is the like haze buff feature, right? For tier 80, this is what I would clear with, and then on 83, I basically enabled this one, which is mobility. This one is armor, this one's resistance, and some mobility, and then this one is dodge to evasion ratio. And there's a few things here that will add some mechanics to tier 80 compared to tier 30. It's not just like they tank here and they do more damage. So this one is the most important one, which is reflect damage. So basically when you attack the enemy, some of the damage will get reflected back to you, but there is a way to mitigate it, which I'll explain in the team composition. So that's one thing you would have to keep in mind with tier 80. There's also they're immune to debuffs. They ignore taunts, which is manageable, not too bad. This one is permanent immunity to optical camouflage, which only affects a couple of units that I know of. This is damage, and this is also damage, right? These are like the big ones. Oh, well, this whole row, like these rows are the big ones, right? But for tier 30, most of these top ones will be unticked, so and you would probably untick all the defensive ones to make it easier to one-shot, right? But you can pick and choose as you please, and that's basically the system for the buffs, right? Well, this is buffs for the enemy, by the way, but there are some things that do affect both sides, which you'll probably pick. Alright, so we're going to go in, and I'm going to show the team comp. Let's see. So I'll explain which ones you have to have if you want to do tier 80, and then which ones you can remove for tier 30, and then we'll talk about some like this is a couple of tips and tricks for some of the other units that are replaceable. But the first non-replaceable unit is Momoka, and she is here to provide a shield. To be honest, I haven't looked at whether there's any other units that will do this, but Momoka is a is a SR unit, so she's a natural 2-star, and I think it's pretty reasonable that you should have it by now if you're like looking to clear hard mode Abyss. And this shield will help you mitigate against the reflect, right, for Morgan. Then for number 2 position we have Franca to heal, right? And basically it's mostly for the following round, because on the following round Morgan will have taken some damage from a combination of Tina's buff and also from just taking some reflect damage. So Franca will heal her back up to allow her to be buffed by Tina again. Okay. Then Lena is here because she's an additional attack buff, which I believe should stack, but I haven't really tested if there's a cap. I think there is a cap, but I don't know how many units it caps at, or like how many buffs it caps at. But she's also here for resistance, which I think helps against the reflect. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like it does, but maybe I'm wrong. But if you don't have her, you could also try to use Hota, which is this one. She's a 1-star, so you should have it by now. Pretty easy to build, but she has continuous healing, and she also does attack buff, so she's like a budget Lena for this. Some of the position will have to change though, but I'm sure you could figure it out. It's not too difficult. Then obviously we have Tina for her single target buff, and her buff is the strongest one that I know of. But if you can't afford the health loss, then you'll probably just run something like Godara or maybe Kaihua. Either of those would work too. Then obviously Morgan is the must-have for this, because what she does is if she kills an assault type, she'll basically nuke the whole board, right? For basically attack times 65%, and that's why this can be a very difficult thing for a lot of people, because you need pretty good cores to scale her damage up. Specifically, you probably ideally want at least one good flat attack core. So that's Morgan. Now for the DPS, right, these are fillers, right? Or these are assault types. You can use any DPS you want. They're basically just here to clean up any like stragglers. I like Alice Astari because they will cleave an additional unit, and that unit's positioning doesn't matter like where they are on the board relative to your original target. So that's why I use them, but you don't have to use them. Because there's only usually like a couple units remaining, anything should work. So you could just use like Zhao Meng or Skadi or whatever would work, like Charlissa even. Any DPS. Then we have the tanks. You also don't necessarily need these tanks, but these are the ones I have. So I'm just going to use them. But the worst case scenario, and this is a bit of a tip, you could probably just use your spare level 1 units, because they're only really going to eat 1 attack, right? And then by the time any opposing units that survive have moved, you will have finished them off with your DPS, and then the fight should be over within the first round. If not, the worst case, hopefully by the start of the second round when Morgan moves again. But you basically position the tanks or filler like fodder units based on what units might survive. For example, this frog might survive usually. So in that case, you would position your tanks like this to counteract the frog, right? And depending on what units are in the later stages that you think might survive, you have to check the attack pattern and then just move your tanks to block the attack, right? So we'll before we go through the example, for the tier 30 version, you would basically just take out Momoko because you don't need her at all. She's only here for the shield, which you don't have to worry about because there's no reflect if you're doing tier 30, so you just take her out. Or I assume you would have unticked the reflect anyway. So you can take her out. You can probably take Lena out as well, and you just use Franca and Tina. Tina to do your buffing. And then that means you have 2 more spare slots, and you can just put in whatever you need to do enough damage, and maybe tank some hits if you have to. So you could have more fodder units, or you could maybe have additional supports to buff if you're not capped. At least if you notice that your Tina is doing more damage with more supports, then by all means put in more supports. And that is pretty much it. So basically the only important units, or actually the only important unit I think, is Morgan across the board. For no matter what tier you're doing, you want Morgan. Now if you don't have Morgan and you're still trying to do like the clears, my best suggestions would be any unit that has a multi-tile attack. For example, Flavira is really good because she has a cross type attack that does that can potentially hit 5 units, but it's a little bit difficult because, like, say for example, this one could only hit like 3 units maximum, right? Because there's nothing here and there's nothing here, and then no matter where you position her, like, you won't hit that many targets, right? That's why Morgan's so broken, is that she's the one unit that we have right now that has a board wipe. I think there will be future units that will do something similar, but at the moment we only have Morgan. You can also use units like Kokoro Kami, who have, like, multi-tile attacks. Skadi obviously is a good budget unit. She does like a pierce of 2 tiles at least. So you'll be looking at units like that. Like Starry and Alice are also decent. They can kill 2 units during the first round. So you just have to use what you have and do the best you can if you don't have a Morgan. Now if you want to progress from this through this and you don't have a Morgan, then I highly recommend to select your Morgan in your customized banner. At least do it next month when it resets, and try to get her. I feel you probably only need 1 copy. I was checking her skills and I think I mistakenly had upgraded her when I didn't really need to, but now I can't really test whether it works on tier 0. So I would say try her out on tier 0 first and see if you need to skill her up at all. You probably don't, so yeah, you might be able to do it with just a tier 0 Morgan. You just have to make sure she's awakened and leveled up with good cause. Alright, now let's go through the actual fight. One thing to note is that no matter how many supports you have going for, in the early turns, you won't pass your turn over to the opponent before your first DPS moves, right? So basically, Morgan will always get the first attack because she's the first DPS in my turn order. Same will be for the opposing team. So this guy would, let's say all units on this board have survived. This support will move, and then the number 2 tank type will attack, and then the turn will pass back over to you, right? So that's the general way how combat works, and it's something I didn't realize until I actually did this event. So I want to pre-warn you that Lena has a very loud ability. So before Lena moves, you might want to take off your headset or something. But just loud sound warning. Maybe in the future I probably should have just disabled the sounds, but I kind of like having the sounds so that you know who's moving. So all the buffs are happening. Yep. So that's super loud. And Tina moves. Now you hit the assault type, and after assault type dies, the explosion will happen, and the frog does indeed survive. So now he hits the Farnace. and now I finish it off with, in this case, Alice. And that is basically what you're doing or trying to do in every single stage, right? You just have to adjust your positioning to make sure that Morgan's attack hits an assault type, and obviously you need the assault type to die. So this is not a great example, but if I had to, well, let's say this row had no assaults, right? So then I would just reposition to hit this assault instead, right? So you just adjust your team and move them around, and then make sure that your supports are hitting the tiles that they're meant to hit. And then you readjust based on anything that might survive, of course. So this one, I would say this guy might survive. So you check the skill attack pattern, right? So this one will attack the last row, and it will cleave. So you want to move all your units forward. And then you put a tank in the back, right? So now, if it survives, it will hit the furnace. And basically, that's the general strategy you use for the rest of the 20 stages. So now let's go over the cores and the stats. The stats is the important part, because the cores are easy, but it's how highly leveled you need them to be. Now this is my stats, and she's not quite max, but I think, you know, it's obviously better to max it out. But yeah, well, at least I ran out of experience, so this is what I used. Going higher, maybe it might let me do one of the, you know, add on an extra haze buff for the enemies, but we'll see later. I might play around with it a little bit more later on. Mine is max skilled, but as I said earlier, I don't think you necessarily need to be max skilled, because I don't think this skill gets stronger from skill ups. I didn't see it in her skill up, like in the ranks that she gains. So I think you could probably just do this with like 0 or probably rank 1, because you ideally want her her gear. So you want to ideally max all this out. The attack is the most important. HP is only important if you're doing T80, because this will help against the reflect. So, you know, more health means more likely to survive the reflect. And then for cores, I'm using the best ones I have, which is 1 flat and 1 attack percent. But I think her ideal is probably going to be double flat. I don't have a second maxed out flat, you know, core, so I can't test it out. But basically, you would just go into the UI and basically just preview like different cores. For example, like I could preview the other attack percent, and you see my attack goes down. So yeah, flat is significantly better at the moment, but I'm unsure whether second flat attack is better or not. My gut feeling is that it probably is, because she's a guard type, so her base attack I don't think is very high. So I think she probably benefits more from double flat, but yeah, I'll figure that out when I can afford to level up another flat attack core. And obviously, ideally, you want to have max affinity for more stats, and that is pretty much it for Morgan's stats. Now, the other stats really don't matter too much, so I'm not really going to bother going over them too deeply. So your single target DPS, my Zhao Meng actually didn't even have cores at some stages, and she was still one-shotting, so it didn't matter as long as she's like, you know, maxed or not. If she is max skilled, then you definitely don't need cores. But if you don't have max skill, then you might need some cores. So just test it out and see how you go. Similarly with the tanks, I don't think they need to be super tanky, especially Fire Ace because she has a second life anyway. And the Nastia has a pretty big shield, so my cores actually aren't even leveled up all that much, but she still was fine surviving attacks. The supports want to be max leveled, and they want their gear with support power to be upgraded ideally, because that's the only way to increase their support power. There's no cores that affect support power, so you don't need any particular cores for them, which is nice. And obviously max skill is nice for having, so that they get as much damage boost as possible, right? But they're easy to skill up because they're 1-stars. The only one that's difficult is Lena, right? Lena needs, well, she's a bit expensive. I think you could try Hota, as I said before, and see how you go. Mine's not leveled, so I'm not even going to bother trying to use it. Momoko, most people will leave her at level 55 because they want her to be awakened, and they want her to be skilled up so that she gets the like this, right? But if you don't use her for PvP, then it's better to level her up because you want her to have more support power, so that her shield is bigger, right? But if you don't have her, if you do use her in PvP like me, then you might have to leave her at a low level. In which case, you want her max skill for sure, and you want her. Mine's not leveled up, but ideally you would level this up as well to give her some extra support power. So those are all the units, or like it's the important points about the units. So I'm going to leave it there. So thanks for watching. I guess I wish you best of luck for the hard mode Moon Abyss if you're attempting to do it. If you can't complete it, I wouldn't fret too much. I mean, the rewards are nice, but they're not like the end of the world really. And unfortunately, you do need a specific unit to have an easy time with it. So if you don't have it, then I just wouldn't worry about it and just focus on like progressing in other areas in the game. Eventually, you'll probably get her, right? Especially if you pulling from the customized banner. So yeah, bear with it. Like this is not the last. Like this is definitely not going to be the last one we get. It's probably going to be a monthly event, so you have time to get her. Like get her for future Moon Abyss events. So I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Maybe there's something I missed, and yeah, feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer you as soon as possible. So until next time, have a good one. Bye bye.